Here's to whiskey kisses, the peaty taste of sin.
Greetings, whiskey folk, and welcome back once again to Drinking Out Loud, where we are exploring the Dare to Dram Advent Calendar, and it's day 18, December 18th, and we're back to a little local one, and there's a drop left again. Hang on. There we go. Savour every drop. This is a particularly special one. Shelter Point. Great local distillery up in Campbell River, a distillery that we supported early on in its time, and we were proud to be the first, I believe, liquor store to have private casks. We did 4 private casks of Shelter Point throughout the years, and you know, we were instrumental in getting them to be the first ever Canadian whiskey bottled by the Scotch Malt Whisky Society as well. Very proud of that, and they've grown. They've done amazing things. They've got new owners that have a different approach to, you know, the whole marketing and limited editions and everything, and aren't doing the single cask bespoke whiskies anymore. So we're not getting any more single casks, unfortunately. But you know, obviously, we still want to support them. And this is one from the vaults, my own personal vaults, which I picked up in person. It's the only way you could get this. This was a distillery exclusive back a few years ago. And it's it's a bit of an oddity. So this was bottled in 2021 for an odd reason. It's called the Prohibition edition of Shelter Point. It's a 10-year-old single cask strength whiskey. If I remember correctly, this might have been the first cask strength 10-year-old to put out. I have another one. I think it was released slightly after. And this is an Islay cask, I believe. Not sure I'm allowed to say this, but screw it. They won't sell me the casks anymore, so I don't mind getting in trouble a little bit with Shelter Point. I believe this is an Ardbeg cask. Hopefully they don't get too much trouble for me saying that. But yeah, this is an Islay cask. I'm fairly sure an Ardbeg cask. And yeah, it was released to celebrate the reopening of the distillery. Because in 2021, they had a little bit of an issue with paperwork. It was discovered that they kind of had the wrong license, not liquor license, but like building license for their distillery. I think it was technically a agricultural building. I think it was registered as a barn or something. So they had to file some new paperwork, and that took a while. So they had to close down operations for a bit. But when they came back and opened up their store again, they bottled this as a special wee treat. And I just happened to be up there that weekend and managed to snag myself one. So very excited to be sharing this with some friends here in Victoria as part of Dare to Dram. And thanks for following along on YouTube. We'll see what we think. I've actually not had this since then. They gave me a little sample when I picked up the bottle, and I haven't had it since then. Oh, it's a great nose, though. Some of these early 10-year-old casks from some of their first distillate, which was very Mike Nicholson inspired. It was him that was sort of helming that first year or two. They're quite different to what Shelter Point's putting out these days, like their standard 12-year-old that they're putting out now. Not that we get any at the Strath. Thanks, guys. But we do have a lot of their old 10-year-old still. But they kind of settled more into a bit of a house style now. This is a little bit out of the ordinary for what they're doing. There's even a write-up on the back. 2021 has easily been the most challenging year in Shelter Point's history, but at long last we triumphantly overcome our troubles, and we're ready to welcome back the public again. To celebrate our victory, we've lined up an extra special release. This 10-year-old single malt whiskey was finished in one of the very special new casks sourced directly from Islay's southern coast. Yeah, Ardbeg. Earlier this year. Yeah. Sunsets and sea air, unofficial ingredients in every bottle. No chill filtration and no added colour. Bottle at cask strength. It's really cool. All right, so I'll show you a close-up of the thing as well. So yeah, it is officially 10 years old. It's from BC, Canada. It's a single malt whiskey, cast out Ardbeg cask, and just a finish though, I should mention. I think, 3 years ago, Adam, can you remember what they said? I think they said that this was ex-Tennessee whiskey before it was ex-Islay cask. They did have a whole bunch of like Jack Daniels casks. I think it was an ex-Tennessee whiskey. But single cask bottle in 2021, released at 56.9 with no added colour or chill filtration. Surprised it doesn't say how many bottles they got out of it, but it was a standard sort of barrel or hogshead that they got, so it would be somewhere in the 200 to 250 range, I assume. It's amazing that the peated whiskey does actually shine through, but not so much as a smoky, more as that sort of mustiness on the nose. Oh yeah, this is quite lovely. It's got that rustic farminess to it, not in a barnyardy way, not in a horse poop way, but in that sort of, grain sheds and old wood kind of a way. Wow, that is actually a surprisingly large amount of Islay cask influence on the palate. It doesn't stick around for too long, the cask influence. You kind of get, if you hold it in your mouth for a while, the peaty smokiness dissipates relatively quickly, but leaves behind this really lovely, nutty single malt. And the long finish, it reminds me of, what is that taste? What is that? It's conkers, horse chestnuts, It's not really a thing. I mean, horse chestnuts exist here, but you don't really play conkers with them. It's an old British schoolyard game. You get a shoelace and you shove it through the conker, like those big, hard, round chestnuts that you get here. They come in the green, spiky shells. Peel the shell off, drill a hole through the chestnut, put a shoelace through it, tie a knot in the bottom, and then you sort of try. One person dangles one, and the other person tries to swing their chestnut at the other person's chestnut, and it's called conkers. And the more conkers your conker defeats, it goes up in numbers. Starts off as a 1-y, then you get a 2-y or a 3-y or a 4-y. I think I had a 7-y once. I think there's a Conkers World Championship. Well, I imagine only British people play. But yeah, the taste reminds me of playing conkers, which is kind of fun on the schoolyard. It kind of reminds me of primary school in general, to be honest. The school I went to for the last couple of years, at least, of my primary school education, was really old. It was an old Victorian building, and it was I think the grade, was it the grade 5 and 6 classrooms? So 2 of the classrooms were actually an old air raid bunker from the Second World War that got converted into classrooms. So it had this of old mustiness about it, the whole building. I don't think it'd be up to modern day code in North America, but in Britain, if it's got a roof, you can read a book in it. It's fine. That's nice. That's really lovely. Honestly, I've not had a smoke point in a long time, which is their new sort of smoky version of Shelter Point. I should really revisit that one and see if it's up to scratch compared to some of their older stuff. This is really quite something, though. I'm very impressed by this bottling. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of it. I know there's a couple of people who are involved in this Dare to Dram calendar who have a particular interest in older local single malts, and and a couple as well that when this was released, I don't think they were really into whiskey. I think one of them wasn't even legally allowed to drink it. So yeah, let us know what you think of this weird step back in Shelter Point time. I think like one of their very first double-digit whiskies. Certainly gets my seal of approval. And neither of them are in the company anymore, but shout out to the 2 guys that made this happen for me. Jake Weeb, I hope you're doing well, bud. For what I understand, Jake still works on the farm side of the business, but not in the distillery, as far as I'm aware. And, of course, Leon Webb, the former distiller, who's now kicking it over back in Scotland, hanging out with the lads at Tamnavulin. Hanging out with the lads, managing the lads. He's the distillery manager. Look forward to hopefully bumping into Leon again when next time I'm over in Scotland. But he visits Victoria as well, so I'm sure our paths will cross. Yeah, it's strange new days at Shelter Point, and I'm still trying to come to terms with the fact that it's not the distillery I used to know and love. It has changed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you've got to move with the tide, and hopefully hopefully Shelter Point keeps on making some stunning good whiskey and we can keep on supporting them. And yeah, long live Shelter Point. All right, thanks for joining in. I will see you tomorrow, day 19th of December. Another whiskey, would you believe it? All right, I'll see you there.
Fine